NASA just made an emergency adjustment to its deep space tracking systems, and it's because of 3i Atlas. Officially, they're calling it routine observation. Unofficially, they've cleared satellite paths, recalibrated orbits, and begun quietly testing impact response systems. Why? Because this so-called harmless comet isn't slowing down, it's accelerating straight toward the inner solar system, and no one can explain why. Hello there, and welcome to the Sleepy Astronomer, a calm corner of the cosmos where even the loudest discoveries are told softly, one breath, one wonder at a time. If these journeys through science and curiosity bring you peace, subscribing to the Sleepy Astronomer helps this constellation of wonder grow, so more dreamers can drift beneath the same ski of questions. Tonight, we explore the truth behind 3i Atlas. The interstellar comet NASA insists poses no threat, even as their silence says otherwise. Why are tracking feeds restricted? Why are certain telescopes suddenly offline? And what could they know that the rest of us don't? Take a deep breath, because tonight, the line between harmless and dangerous is thinner than we've ever imagined. This is the Sleepy Astronomer. You lift your gaze to the night sky, letting the darkness wrap around your thoughts like soft velvet. Somewhere far beyond the familiar planets and the scattered pinpricks of stars, a small visitor drifts into view. You feel the first flutter of curiosity, a subtle tug in your chest, as if the universe itself is leaning toward you, inviting you to follow. It is not a fireball or a comet of dramatic brilliance, but a quiet traveller, moving steadily, unhurried, and entirely alone. In its silence, there is a story. Its body is small, irregular, and unassuming, yet every contour holds the memory of countless years. Dust, ice, and fragments of rock cling together in fragile assembly. You imagine the earliest moments of its existence billions of years ago, before the sun itself had completed its youth. It formed in the cold outskirts of another star system, where particles collided slowly in the dark and gradually stuck together, building piece by piece the tiny world that is now gliding toward your own. This visitor has journeyed farther than anything you can easily imagine, crossing the empty stretches between stars, a lone passenger in the quiet vastness. As you watch, you realize that motion here is different from motion on Earth. There is no air to slow it down, no friction to temper its speed. Every move, every subtle curve in its trajectory is dictated by invisible hands. Gravity, inertia, the gentle pull of the sun and planets it has not yet reached. You picture it gliding past distant worlds, each planet's gravity a whisper nudging it along, shaping its path, guiding it with quiet insistence. Time and space feel different when you trace its journey. Seconds stretch into minutes, minutes into hours, and yet the comet, if you can call it that, travels billions of kilometers in a relentless, patient slide. You notice how sunlight begins to reach it, distant and diffuse. Even from here, far across the solar system, photons strike the icy surface, scattering, reflecting, and sometimes warming it imperceptibly. You imagine the small particles of ice sparkling as they catch the light, each one a prism refracting stories of stars long extinguished. These flashes are not dramatic but gentle, a quiet shimmer against the black canvas. Light and shadow dance across its uneven surface, giving you a sense of form, of texture, of age. The shapes tell a story, craters, ridges, and cracks formed over eons, sculpted by collisions and cosmic dust storms, each scar a memory of its survival. Your mind begins to wander alongside it. What does it feel to be alone in the void for billions of years? Perhaps nothing at all, for it has no consciousness, yet in your imagination it carries a presence. You sense its silent persistence, the delicate balance that keeps it intact. Tiny particles breaking off, the slow release of gas when warmed by distant starlight. These are subtle signs of life in motion, even if not living in the way you know. You trace the trajectory with your eyes and with your mind, connecting the dots between mathematics, physics, and wonder. Every formula becomes a brushstroke painting the invisible. Every calculation whispers the story of a universe governed by unseen hands. You feel a peculiar intimacy and odd closeness, though nothing in the visitor is aware of your attention. You trace its orbit across the solar system, noting how it bends gently under the sun's influence, a delicate curve that has taken millions of years to arrive at this point. There is no rush here. You can feel time differently, measured not by your heartbeat or the ticking of clocks, but by the comet's journey through space. You imagine yourself floating beside it, weightless, gliding past Jupiter's mighty gravity wells, past the asteroid belts and distant planets, feeling the silent tug of each body it passes. The vastness becomes a cradle for your imagination, and the emptiness is not lonely but expansive, full of possibility. There is also a subtle tension in watching something so distant yet so near in your thoughts. Scientists on Earth have noticed it too, tracking it with telescopes and cameras that pierce through the darkness. Each observation adds clarity, slowly revealing size, shape, speed, and composition. You imagine their quiet rooms, soft screens glowing in the night, minds attentive and patient, gathering data like a poet gathering words. Their careful measurements trace its path, calculate its orbit, and anticipate its future. Yet even they must admit uncertainty. Small deviations, tiny forces invisible to the naked eye, could change the story. And yet, in that uncertainty there is beauty, the universe's gentle reminder that not all must be fully known to be appreciated. As you continue to watch, you notice a faint shimmer, a halo of dust trailing behind, whispering that this traveler is not entirely untouched by its journey. Ice and rock slowly release particles under the soft influence of sunlight, forming a wispy tail that stretches imperceptibly towards space. You imagine this trail as a memory, fragments that will remain long after the comet passes, a subtle signature marking its passage. Even in the void and apparent emptiness, there is presence. Even in silence, there is voice. You sense the rhythm of the cosmos in this motion, a quiet heartbeat measured in kilometers per second and years per revolution. You breathe with it, aligning your own pulse with its ancient motion. There is calm in this observation, in the knowledge that some things are far beyond human control, yet their paths can be understood, predicted, and even cherished. You feel a soft connection to every particle of ice and dust, a recognition that even in solitude there is belonging, to a universe that is vast, ancient, and endlessly patient. Your mind quiets, tracing each curve of its orbit, each gentle turn around the sun, feeling the weight of its history and the grace of its journey. And as the night deepens, you sense that this visitor carries more than ice and dust. It brings questions you cannot fully answer, about distance, time, motion, and the persistence of things that predate life on Earth. Its silence encourages your own reflection, inviting you to wonder and to drift, slowly, without urgency, through thought and observation. You feel the quiet pull of anticipation, a gentle curiosity about what comes next, about how its journey will continue, and what subtle effects it might have on the solar system it has entered. Somewhere far from your eyes, the comet glides onward, carrying secrets older than your imagination. And as you let your thoughts linger on its path, on its quiet passage, you feel the rhythm of time stretching softly, urging you to watch, to imagine, and to rest in the knowledge that even the smallest visitor from afar can hold the universe in its movement, just waiting to reveal the next story. You feel yourself drawn closer to the comet, imagining that each fragment, each piece of ice and rock, is a tiny traveler in its own right. They are not just components of a larger body, they are individual storytellers, carrying whispers from the earliest eras of the universe. You picture them forming in the far reaches of a distant star system, where temperatures are low enough that volatile gases condense and dust clings, slowly building small, irregular bodies. Here, collisions are gentle yet persistent, a cosmic rhythm that patiently shapes these stones over millions of years. You imagine each particle tumbling through space, spinning slowly in the darkness. Tiny fragments bump against one another, sticking or bouncing apart, forming clusters and breaking again, a slow dance dictated by forces unseen. You trace this choreography in your mind, feeling the subtle elegance of motion that is invisible to casual observation. There is no rush, no urgency, only the steady, almost hypnotic flow of time and interaction. Each collision, each adhesion, carries with it a story of survival, a testament to persistence in the cold void. Some of these stones formed in regions where stars had already lived and died. You imagine a supernova, exploding violently, scattering heavy elements into space, which eventually find their way into these icy wanderers. You picture the iron and nickel, the oxygen and carbon mingling with dust and ice to create objects that are both simple and incredibly complex. Every atom in these fragments may have once belonged to a star that burned brightly before extinguishing, and now, billions of years later, it drifts silently toward your solar system. The comet itself is a vessel for these stones, carrying them through interstellar space in a journey longer than any human can truly comprehend. You picture them orbiting a distant sun, caught in gravitational dances with other objects, occasionally nudged by the light pressure of their star, or by collisions with other icy bodies. Time stretches endlessly in this region of space, and these fragments endure, patient and resilient. You can feel the weight of their history in your chest, a quiet gravity that pulls on your imagination, making you aware of the vast scales of both distance and duration. You notice the delicate balance of motion that keeps these fragments intact. Even a tiny change in velocity could send one off on a wildly different path or break it into countless smaller pieces. Gravity, centrifugal force, and collisions shape the trajectory of each fragment. You think about how small and seemingly insignificant forces can have enormous consequences over millions of kilometers and billions of years. The stones move in quiet obedience to the laws of physics, their paths predictable yet infinitely complex, like a symphony whose notes are written in the language of matter and motion. In your mind's eye, you follow one fragment as it spins gently, catching faint starlight, its surface rough and pitted with microcraters. You imagine the subtle heating it experiences as it drifts closer to a sun, just enough to release tiny plumes of gas and dust. This process, called outgassing, is slow and fragile, almost imperceptible, but it shapes the fragment's behavior, gradually altering its spin and trajectory. You feel the patience required to witness such phenomena, a calm that contrasts sharply with the hurried pace of life on Earth. You sense a quiet poetry in these motions. The stones are not silent. They hum in a frequency you cannot hear, moving in accordance with gravity, momentum, and magnetic fields. Each interaction leaves a trace, a microscopic scar, a shifted orbit, a faint stream of debris. They carry within them the memory of collisions with other cosmic travelers, fragments from distant planets, or particles released by dying stars. In this way, each stone is both a relic and a witness, a container of cosmic history. As you continue to drift alongside them, you realize that you are witnessing not just movement, but endurance. These stones have survived environments that are harsh beyond comprehension, intense cold, radiation, collisions, and the emptiness of interstellar space. They have traveled light years without guidance or protection, yet they remain intact, fragile but persistent. You feel a quiet kinship with this endurance, imagining the patience and resilience required to persist in a universe so vast and indifferent. Your thoughts move gently to the broader significance of these fragments. They carry material that formed in the crucibles of stars, the basic building blocks of planets, water, and life itself. Some of these elements may eventually find their way to worlds that could host life, seeding the universe with possibility. The stones become more than distant travelers. They are bearers of potential, carriers of a story that reaches across time and space. You feel the quiet thrill of knowing that every fragment in this comet contains a fragment of creation itself, a whisper of beginnings older than any memory you can hold. You notice the slow rotation of the comet and its fragments, the gentle wobble as they drift. Each movement is precise yet subtle, influenced by countless microforces accumulated over eons. You imagine tracing the trajectory of a single fragment through interstellar space, observing how radiation pressure and gravitational tugs from distant stars guide it ever so slightly, nudging it toward new destinies. The universe is patient, and in this patience there is profound beauty. You breathe in, sync with the imagined motion, letting the rhythm of the ancient stones calm your own thoughts, slow your pulse, and widen your perception of time. And as you watch, you begin to sense that these fragments are more than just frozen debris. They are storytellers, historians of the cosmos, messengers from times and places you can barely conceive. You realize that in observing them, you're not merely watching objects in motion, but participating in a quiet conversation with the past. Each fragment invites you to wonder, to reflect, and to drift deeper into thought, into curiosity, into a gentle understanding of the patience and elegance that governs all things. Somewhere along this journey, you recognize that the comet's body, though now traveling within your solar system, is still shaped by its long voyage, carrying within it the echoes of collisions, ice, and starlight. And as you let your thoughts settle on these ancient stones, you feel a soft pull toward the next layer of understanding. The way light and shadow reveal the surface, the textures that hold both beauty and memory, and the quiet dance of illumination that allows you to see, to imagine, and to wonder further. You let your eyes follow the comet as it glides slowly through the void, and you begin to notice the subtle play of light on its surface. Though the sun is distant, its rays reach across millions of kilometers, brushing against ice, dust, and rock. The glow is faint, gentle, yet it paints textures across ridges and crevices, shaping the silent landscape before you. Shadows stretch long and soft, bending around irregular forms, reminding you that even in emptiness, depth and contour exist. You feel your mind relaxing into this rhythm, tracing the contrast between brightness and darkness as if reading a story written in shadows. You imagine the icy surface as a delicate mirror, reflecting tiny glimmers of sunlight like scattered jewels. Crystalline formations sparkle faintly, catching rays at angles you almost cannot perceive. You sense the history embedded in each reflective fragment, snow-like layers of dust and ice that have formed over eons, layered and compressed in cold, distant space. Tiny impacts from microscopic debris leave their marks, small craters and pits that capture light in subtle ways, creating patterns that are both intricate and unpredictable. Every detail, every contour feels like a gentle whisper of time. The shadows tell a different story. They fall across craters and jagged surfaces, stretching and bending with every tiny rotation of the comet. You follow them as they move, realizing that light and darkness are partners in revealing its form. Without shadows, the ridges and curves might remain invisible. Without illumination, the stones and ice would be anonymous shapes drifting in darkness. You feel the quiet lesson of this interplay. Clarity emerges when contrasts meet, and even the smallest shimmer can illuminate an entire surface. You think about how the sun's light affects the comet in other ways too. As photons strike the surface, they impart minuscule amounts of energy, warming ice enough to release faint gas and dust. This process, outgassing, is slow and subtle, yet it alters the comet's rotation and trajectory ever so slightly. You imagine this as a gentle breath, a quiet exhalation that the comet releases as it travels, leaving a soft trail behind in the cold void. You breathe alongside it, feeling the rhythm of movement, light, and response. Your mind drifts to the smallest details. You picture dust grains sparkling in the sunlight, some reflecting brilliantly, some absorbing warmth. Each behaves differently, influenced by shape, color, and orientation. Some grains detach entirely, forming a soft, wispy tail, drifting slowly into space. Others cling stubbornly to the surface, holding on against the faint pull of radiation and solar wind. In this, you feel the quiet poetry of persistence, the interplay of forces invisible yet powerful, shaping both motion and story. As you observe, you notice that the comet is not a uniform surface. Some areas are smooth, almost glassy, polished by eons of micro-collisions. Others are jagged, rough, and pocked with tiny holes. Sunlight reveals every nuance, every subtle slope. Shadows stretch and curve around these irregularities, and you realize that each variation tells a unique story. The history of impacts, the slow accumulation of dust, the faint traces of sublimation where ice has evaporated under distant sunlight. You imagine the comet as a landscape frozen in time, its memory etched into every ridge and pit. The motion of shadows also reminds you of rotation. The comet slowly turns, and the dance of light and dark across its surface changes with every shift. You feel the quiet patience of this rotation, a gentle rhythm measured not in minutes but in hours and days. Every revolution offers a new perspective, revealing features that were hidden before. You sense that observation itself is a slow, meditative act, that understanding emerges gradually, as your mind drifts in time with the motion of the comet. You begin to consider how light itself tells a story of distance and scale. The faint rays reaching the comet have traveled millions of kilometers, carrying information about the sun, about the space they have crossed, about the emptiness they have traversed. Each photon has a history, moving steadily, almost imperceptibly, before striking ice or dust and scattering. In watching this interaction, you feel connected not only to the comet, but to the vastness of space itself, tracing threads of light across unimaginable distances. You notice subtle changes in brightness and shadow as the comet passes closer to the sun's influence. Some surfaces that were once in darkness now catch stray rays, revealing ridges and fissures that you could not see before. The light uncovers textures, some smooth and reflective, others rough and absorbing, and you sense the quiet storytelling inherent in this revelation. Every illuminated curve, every darkened hollow whispers a fragment of the comet's history, a story of formation, collision, and slow endurance. Your imagination drifts even further, envisioning the shadows of distant planets or moons falling upon it, tiny eclipses moving across its surface. You feel the subtle rhythms of these interactions, the faint tug of gravity, the delicate choreography of motion that shapes its journey. Even in vast emptiness, the comet is part of a larger system, its path intertwined with unseen forces, each influencing the play of light and shadow. You sense the interconnectedness of machine, illumination, and the quiet history written across its surface. And as you drift deeper into observation, you begin to see the comet not only as a body of ice and rock, but as a storyteller in light and shadow. Every ridge, every hollow, every flicker of brightness carries memory, carrying whispers of stars, collisions, and time. You feel your mind expanding with gentle curiosity, tracing the patterns of illumination as if reading the diary of a silent traveller, learning to see through contrasts, to understand through the subtle play of light. You breathe slowly, aligning your heartbeat with the quiet rhythm of its rotation and the gentle pulses of reflected sunlight. In this calm, you feel the interconnectedness of space, light, and motion, and you sense that understanding is not urgent. It arrives gently, like dawn illuminating a landscape, revealing both clarity and mystery simultaneously. You imagine the distant laboratories on Earth, softly lit rooms filled with screens, instruments, and telescopes pointing upward toward the path of the comet. There is no clamour here, no urgent rush. Instead, a quiet concentration hums like a lullaby. Scientists, engineers, and technicians sit with their observations, their minds attuned to subtle signals across space. Every movement of the comet, every glimmer of reflected sunlight, every shift in trajectory is carefully measured, recorded, and considered. You sense the patience of their work, a reflection of the patience you have felt following this silent traveller from afar. You picture the telescopes sweeping across the night sky, catching photons that have travelled millions of kilometres, bringing distant light into focus. The cameras and detectors are precise, capable of discerning minute details. The tiniest plume of gas, a flicker of dust, a minuscule rotation that hints at internal shifts. Each instrument hums softly, its sensors sensitive enough to detect forces invisible to the naked eye. You feel a quiet reverence for the ingenuity that allows humans to bridge the immense distances of space, to touch the story of the comet with knowledge and curiosity. Every calculation is deliberate. Orbital mechanics, trajectories, gravitational influences, and radiation pressure are all considered with meticulous care. You imagine teams huddled together, discussing projections and probabilities, their voices low, almost inaudible, blending into the hum of machines. They anticipate small variations, understanding that even tiny forces can subtly change the path of 3 I/A/TLAS. In this careful attention, you feel a sense of intimacy, a bond between humans and the vast indifferent cosmos. A quiet dialogue spoken in numbers and patterns. You notice how the scientists use models to simulate every possibility. Computers hum, running calculations across countless scenarios. You imagine the comet approaching at a distance measured in millions of kilometers, and yet these models allow the teams to predict its future path with astonishing precision. Each simulation is a meditation, a quiet act of foresight. You sense the calm concentration required, the gentle persistence of observation, and you feel your own thoughts slowing to match the rhythm of their work. Observation is also sensory. You imagine the soft glow of screens reflecting faces bathed in quiet light, the tactile press of buttons and keys, and the careful calibration of instruments. Data streams across networks, arriving in tables, graphs, and images, each number a whisper from the depths of space. You feel the intimacy of this process, human attention extending outward, reaching across the void, connecting to a small body of ice and dust that has traveled farther than any human can imagine. Some of the measurements are subtle, a shift in brightness, a faint tail of gas, a slight wobble in rotation. Each tells a story about the comet's composition and behavior. You imagine the scientists interpreting these clues, each analysis building a richer understanding. They speak softly of probabilities and uncertainties, acknowledging that even with their careful observation, space retains its mystery. You feel the reassurance of this honesty. Not all must be known, and yet the pursuit of knowledge itself carries its own quiet satisfaction. You sense the rhythm of the vigil. Nights turn to days and back again. Telescopes follow the comet across the sky, tracking its slow approach. Analysts adjust their calculations, engineers refine instruments, and all the while the comet continues its silent journey. You imagine the quiet persistence of these humans, a reflection of the comet's own patient motion. Observation becomes an act of care, a soft attention that honors both the complexity of the universe and the fragility of human understanding. Even in this quiet there is excitement, though it is not dramatic. There is joy in discovery, in glimpsing details previously unseen. A new plume of gas, an unexpected angle of light, a subtle shift in trajectory. These are the moments that bring a gentle thrill, the kind that makes you lean closer, pay more attention, breathe more slowly, and yet feel deeply connected to something far beyond yourself. You sense the wonder that is mirrored in your own gaze, a shared curiosity stretching across distance and time. You reflect on the responsibility these scientists carry. Their predictions might guide preparations for potential impacts, should the unlikely occur. Each calculation, each careful observation, is an act of stewardship. You imagine the balance between caution and calm, the way they manage uncertainty with intelligence and patience. In this reflection, you feel a profound connection to the human desire to understand, to protect, and to witness the unfolding story of the cosmos without rushing its rhythm. And as you consider the vigil itself, you notice the parallels to your own watching. Just as you trace the comet's path in thought, the scientists trace it with instruments. Both acts are quiet, attentive, meditative. Both involve patience, reflection, and a gentle wonder at the vast scales involved. You feel the subtle bond between human curiosity and the silent, distant traveller, a connection that spans millions of kilometres, light years even, bridging understanding with observation. You sense that this vigilance is not merely scientific, it is also profoundly human. It is a form of listening, a careful attention to a story that is written in ice, rock, light, and motion. Each data point, each plotted path, each image captured by a telescope is a conversation with the cosmos, a meditation on patience, precision, and presence. You feel the quiet rhythm of their work, echoing the comet's own slow, deliberate motion through the void. And as the night deepens, you realize that this quiet vigilance, this patient watching and calculation, is itself a mirror of the universe. Observation and motion, light and shadow, knowledge and mystery, all unfold together in soft harmony. You feel your mind settling into this rhythm, letting curiosity and calm coexist, and you sense the unfolding story that lies ahead, the slow, inevitable march of time, the gentle shaping of forces, and the delicate dance that connects ice, dust, and human attention. You close your eyes for a moment, letting your mind float alongside 3I/ATLAS as it glides through the vast emptiness. Time feels slower here, not measured by ticking clocks or hurried minutes, but by the quiet cadence of motion itself. The comet moves steadily, gracefully, a tiny traveller crossing an expanse of space, so immense that the concept of hurry seems absurd. You feel the rhythm of cosmic timing in your chest, as if your heartbeat aligns for just a moment with the slow passage of light years and kilometres. Every movement of the comet is a testament to precise orchestration. Gravity whispers from distant planets and the sun, exerting gentle nudges subtle enough to be almost imperceptible, yet powerful enough to shape its path across millions of kilometers. You imagine the invisible tug of Jupiter's immense mass, the soft push of Saturn's rings, and the lightest brush of solar wind nudging the comet just slightly. In this delicate balance, you sense the poetry of physics, forces acting without malice, without urgency, but with perfect harmony. Your thoughts trace its path like a ribbon unwinding through space. The orbit is not random. It is a careful composition, a choreography written by centuries of celestial mechanics. You notice how even the tiniest forces, when applied consistently across incomprehensible distances, can alter the future course in subtle but meaningful ways. You think of the comet as a dancer in slow motion, moving with elegance through an arena shaped by invisible hands, guided by rules both simple and infinitely complex. You feel the stretching of time here. One moment of observation can represent days, months, or even years in the comet's journey. Light traveling from the sun reaches it after minutes, hours, or longer, and the signals that arrive at Earth lag by millions of kilometers. You sense the slow layering of cause and effect, the way a small push or plume of gas can subtly rotate its axis or slightly change its orbit. Even in this slow rhythm, every action is meaningful. Patience is not just a virtue, it is a necessity, the only way to truly witness cosmic motion. You notice the gentle dance of rotation. The comet spins, slowly but deliberately, a rotation that reveals surfaces to sunlight then shadows them again. Each turn exposes new textures and features, altering how light falls across its icy crust. You imagine observing these rotations over days, tracing every subtle change, feeling the pattern in a way that is both scientific and meditative. The act of watching becomes a rhythm in itself, a bridge between human perception and cosmic motion. Gravity continues to guide the journey with quiet insistence. You imagine how the comet curves toward the sun, pulled by its steady influence, yet never rushing, never colliding, following a path of patient inevitability. You sense the delicate balance of forces, inertia carrying it forward, gravity bending its trajectory, and the faint influence of pressure from sunlight and interstellar particles whispering along its surface. It is a slow conversation between mass, motion, and energy, unfolding over distances that boggle the mind yet feel tangible when traced in thought. You feel the calm inevitability of timing in these motions. Every second, every rotation, every orbit contributes to a larger story, one that began long before humans observed it and will continue long after. You sense the quiet precision with which physics operates, a system of checks and balances that is both predictable and astonishingly elegant. There is a soft comfort in understanding that even the vast and seemingly chaotic cosmos moves with rules, rhythm, and patience, offering a gentle reassurance in its constancy. As you drift with these thoughts, you imagine the comet's path intersecting with the gravitational fields of planets and other objects, subtle deflections that shape the trajectory over centuries. Each influence is a gentle suggestion, a whisper nudging it along the path it now travels. You sense that the universe, vast and indifferent, is not haphazard, but follows a quiet poetry written in laws that are visible only through patience, observation, and reflection. You feel that poetry in your own chest, a slow pulse that aligns with the steady sweep of the comet's journey. The concept of distance becomes malleable here. Millions of kilometers feel like a gentle stretch, and time stretches accordingly. You sense the comet gliding past the orbits of planets, past the belts of asteroids, through quiet spaces where light has traveled for millions of years. Even in vast emptiness, every motion is deliberate, every path meaningful, every moment part of a grand and patient sequence that continues regardless of human attention. You feel the weight of this realization, a gentle awe at the order that underlies the vast empty spaces of the cosmos. You also sense the interplay between certainty and uncertainty. While physics can predict its path with remarkable accuracy, small forces, radiation, collisions with dust particles, subtle outgassing, may influence its rotation or trajectory in ways only slowly revealed. You recognize that the universe allows space for surprise, that even in its rhythm there is room for gentle unpredictability. You feel a calm acceptance of this duality, that understanding and mystery can coexist, and that time itself carries both clarity and subtlety. And as you continue to float alongside this slow-moving traveler, you notice the quiet poetry in the balance of cosmic timing, motion and stillness, light and shadow, predictability and uncertainty. Each second of travel is both fleeting and eternal. You sense the rhythm of the universe as a gentle, continuous flow, one that stretches across years, centuries, and millennia, a pulse that you can align with through attention and imagination. In this reflection, you feel a connection between your own experience of time and the slow march of the comet. Human seconds are brief, fleeting, but in observing the patient motion of the universe, you understand the beauty of elongation, of rhythm, of inevitability. You let your thoughts stretch, drift, and settle in alignment with this cosmic flow, feeling the gentle resonance of a universe that moves with quiet purpose. You watch the comet drift, gliding through the emptiness of space, and begin to notice the faintest influences on its path. Even here, far from the warmth and pressure of planets, the universe is never truly still. Invisible hands tug and brush against its icy surface, the radiation of distant stars, the subtle flow of solar wind, and tiny collisions with drifting dust. Each nudge is almost imperceptible, yet, over millions of kilometers, these small touches accumulate, shaping motion in ways that feel both gentle and profound. You imagine a single photon from the sun striking the comet, imparting just a whisper of momentum. Alone, it does nothing, but multiplied across billions of photons over years, it can alter rotation or shift trajectory subtly. You sense the paradox. These are forces so small they seem insignificant, yet time allows them to gather strength. You feel your own awareness stretching, imagining the patient accumulation of infinitesimal pushes shaping an object that has traveled across the void for billions of years. Tiny particles drifting through space collide with the comet's surface at barely perceptible speeds. You visualize grains of rock and ice hitting softly, leaving microcraters or altering the path of spinning dust. The changes are almost imperceptible in the short term, yet they add together, a quiet reshaping of history. You feel a gentle humility in this knowledge. The universe operates both in grand gestures and in subtleties too delicate to see, teaching patience in every motion, every collision. Gravity plays its own quiet part. You imagine distant planets tugging with invisible hands, altering the comet's path by fractions of a degree. Over long distances, these tiny deviations compound, guiding the comet along a course that is both precise and unpredictable. You sense the subtle conversation between motion and influence, the interplay of forces that can change destinies across millions of kilometers. Even the smallest stone or star can have effects far beyond its immediate vicinity. You begin to trace a single interaction in your mind, a gentle outgassing from the comet as it absorbs sunlight, a minuscule force pushing its spin slightly faster. Over weeks, months, and years, these tiny adjustments subtly reshape rotation and orientation. You feel the slow unfolding of causality in real time, the quiet multiplication of small actions into significant consequences. You realize that persistence is a force in itself, and time is the medium through which tiny acts become meaningful. You notice the comet's irregular shape magnifies these effects. One side is icy, reflective, catching sunlight and releasing gas. Another is rocky, absorbing warmth, offering resistance. You imagine how the uneven release of particles can produce torque, gently twisting the comet over its long journey. Even in seeming randomness, there is order, a system of micro-effects that collectively shape its fate. You feel the elegance in this subtle dance, the quiet poetry of cause and effect. Collisions with stray debris are another form of quiet influence. You imagine the comet drifting through a sparse cloud of dust and tiny rocks. Each impact is tiny, seemingly unimportant, yet over eons these encounters carve surfaces, shift trajectories, and leave a faint trail of fragments behind. You sense the persistence of small forces, a whisper of touch repeated countless times, creating motion, change, and story across the dark expanses of space. Radiation pressure from distant stars also nudges the comet, photons transferring infinitesimal momentum with every strike. You imagine this as a persistent caress, a gentle, invisible hand guiding the surface. Alone, the effect is nearly imperceptible. Together, over time, it subtly alters rotation and drift. You feel the quiet patience required to observe such changes, a lesson in endurance, persistence, and the accumulation of small acts into significant shifts. You reflect on the larger picture. Each microforce, while tiny on its own, combines with countless others over vast distances and long durations. The comet's journey is a tapestry woven from invisible threads, each interaction contributing to the final path. You feel the gentle symmetry of this interplay, the way the universe balances randomness with law, chaos with structure, chance with inevitability. Every detail matters, even the smallest, for in time it becomes part of the whole. And as you imagine the comet drifting onward, guided by these subtle forces, you sense a quiet parallel to your own life. Small actions, tiny moments of attention, and gentle choices may seem inconsequential in the moment. Yet over time, they accumulate, shaping direction, forming patterns, and creating outcomes that feel inevitable only after the passage of time. You feel the lesson of cosmic patience settling within you. Persistence is powerful, and even minute influences carry significance when allowed to act across time and space. You sense the interconnectedness of cause and effect, of motion and interaction, of light and shadow. Tiny forces, whether from sunlight, dust, radiation, or gravity, gently sculpt the comet's journey, shaping each rotation and path with elegant subtlety. You feel a quiet appreciation for the delicate balance between these small influences and the grand sweep of cosmic motion. In this awareness, you drift into calm reflection, feeling the rhythm of the universe in slow measured pulses that match your own breathing. And as the comet continues on its path, shaped by forces invisible yet persistent, you begin to notice how these quiet influences hint at a larger story, one of cause, consequence, and patient transformation stretching across the universe. Even the tiniest touch leaves a mark over time, reminding you that endurance, persistence, and gentle influence are woven into the very fabric of space. You drift closer, imagining the surface of 3I/ATLAS beneath your fingertips, though your touch is only in thought. The comet is a mosaic of textures, a fusion of ice and stone shaped over eons. You notice the contrast, jagged ridges of rock, fractured by collisions, standing alongside smooth glassy surfaces of ice, formed when frozen gas is settled and crystallized in the distant reaches of space. Each contour carries memory, every fissure a testament to resilience against the slow march of cosmic time. The ice gleams faintly, catching scattered sunlight and refracting it in subtle glimmers. You imagine tracing the crystalline structure, the microscopic lattice of frozen molecules, each one a silent witness to the birth of the comet itself. Some regions are delicate and fragile, likely to flake away with even the gentlest stress, while others are dense, solid, enduring hundreds of thousands of years without change. In this contrast, you feel both vulnerability and strength, a reflection of nature's quiet balance. The rocky portions are rough, pitted with tiny craters from collisions with space debris. You imagine the impacts, some barely perceptible, others forceful enough to chip away fragments and send them spinning into space. Each mark tells a story of survival, evidence of countless encounters with cosmic particles, radiation, and the subtle pull of gravitational forces. You follow these grooves and pits in your mind, running your fingers along invisible paths, sensing the accumulated history embedded in every fracture and ridge. You notice how the two materials, ice and rock, coexist in delicate tension. The ice may coat rocky surfaces, softening edges and filling crevices, while the rock anchors layers of volatile compounds in place. You sense the slow transformation over time, sublimation gently eroding ice and leaving behind dust trails that float into space. This interplay is both destructive and creative, revealing the quiet artistry of natural processes that operate over millions of kilometers and billions of years. You imagine looking closer still, seeing small fissures and cavities where gases once escaped in gentle eruptions. These vents are like the breath of the comet, exhaling ancient air trapped in ice since the formation of its parent star system. You feel a pulse in your mind, a rhythm akin to a heartbeat, as if the comet itself were alive in its quiet persistence. The movement is slow, subtle, imperceptible to casual observation, yet it shapes the comet's rotation and trajectory in ways both minute and profound. Each crack and curve offers another story. You picture a region fractured by a collision long ago, its edges rounded over eons by the subtle effects of outgassing and radiation. Nearby, jagged peaks stand firm, their shadows stretching across icy plains in long, quiet lines. You feel the contrasts, the mixture of resilience and fragility, and you sense a meditative calm in witnessing the combination of forces that sculpted every detail. Even imperfection feels intentional here, a natural artistry honed by time and circumstance. You reflect on the small grains of dust embedded within the ice. Some sparkle faintly in the sunlight, others lie hidden, their composition telling tales of distant stars that lived and died long before the comet began its journey. You sense a quiet connection to the universe at large, that every fragment, every molecule is part of an ongoing story tracing origins far beyond human experience. The comet becomes a vessel not only of ice and stone, but of memory, carrying fragments of creation across the void. You sense the fragility of these surfaces, yet also their endurance. Ice will slowly sublimate, rock will be pitted and worn, but the comet persists. You imagine this persistence as a kind of resilience built into matter itself. Even in the harshest conditions of space, radiation, vacuum, and extreme temperatures, the comet continues its slow journey, a silent traveler that witnesses epochs unfold. You feel the quiet majesty of endurance, the patient persistence of a traveler who has known the universe long before Earth's first breaths. Your mind drifts to the way the comet's shape affects its motion. Jagged peaks and ice-coated plains catch sunlight differently, influencing outgassing and subtle thrusts that alter rotation. Tiny asymmetries can twist the comet over time, revealing the connection between form and movement, between material and destiny. You imagine tracing the flow of these forces across surfaces, sensing the gentle dance of cause and effect, the way physics works softly yet inexorably over vast distances. As you trace the invisible surfaces, you feel a kind of intimacy with the comet. Every curve, every ridge, every crystal of ice feels like a story shared silently with you. You're no longer a distant observer. You're entwined with its journey, sensing texture, rhythm, and history. You feel the heartbeat of ice and stone, subtle yet persistent, moving across eons in quiet, deliberate motion. And as you linger in this meditative observation, you notice the edges of fractured surfaces beginning to glimmer more brightly, catching stray sunlight and hinting at the processes that may soon shape them further. You sense that the comet's form is not static. It is alive in its own slow way, evolving, adjusting, and continuing its timeless voyage through space. You watch 3I/ATLAS drift through space, tracing every rotation, every glimmer of light along its icy surface. The journey seems predictable, the slow rhythm of gravity and motion steady and reliable. Yet as you observe, a subtle change emerges, almost imperceptible at first. A fragment separates, breaking away gently, and you notice a small deviation in its path. It is not sudden, not violent, but it is undeniable. Something has shifted. You feel a quiet tension, a gentle curiosity stirring in your mind. Physics, you know, governs every movement with remarkable precision. Yet here in the vastness of space, even predictable laws allow for subtle surprises. Tiny forces, irregularities in structure, or uneven outgassing can nudge a body along a slightly different course. The comet's split is a reminder that nature is never entirely uniform, that even in the most ordered systems, slight variations can ripple outward to create new patterns. The fragments drift slowly, tumbling in space with deliberate motion. You imagine them spinning like silent dancers, each rotation revealing new surfaces, new shadows, new textures. The ice catches the sun's rays differently on each fragment, creating flickers of brilliance that seem to pulse in time with your own breathing. You feel the quiet wonder of observing something rare, a subtle imperfection unfolding over unimaginable distances, and your attention stretches to encompass both the whole and the fragments within it. You reflect on how splitting occurs. Outgassing, internal pressure, and structural weaknesses can all contribute, tiny imbalances magnified by the void. You imagine the internal layers of ice and dust, each with slightly different density and cohesion, Over millions of kilometers, these small internal differences manifest externally, nudging one fragment away from the other. It is not chaotic, it is gentle, inevitable, and measured by the patient hand of physics. The fragments' paths diverge slowly, barely detectable at first, yet over time the deviation becomes more pronounced. You sense the beauty of this process. A single body traveling for billions of years evolves, adapting subtly to forces both internal and external. The break is not destruction but transformation. You feel the quiet lesson embedded in the motion. Imperfection and change are part of the natural flow, creating new possibilities even as old forms dissolve. As you follow the drift, you notice how sunlight interacts differently with each fragment. The angles of reflection shift, shadows stretch in novel ways, and faint plumes of gas appear where the surface is exposed. You imagine that every rotation, every flicker of brightness, tells a story of recent change, a silent record of movement and adjustment. You feel the gentle intimacy of understanding these tiny variations, the kind of knowledge that requires patience and quiet observation. You think about the unpredictability inherent in the process. No single observation could have foreseen the split with absolute certainty. Even the most precise models allow for slight variations, for outcomes that reveal themselves only over time. You feel a soft humility in this awareness, a recognition that the universe has its own rhythm, its own capacity for surprise, and that part of observation is surrendering to the flow rather than imposing absolute control. You notice that the fragments seem to communicate in motion. Though distant and separate, their paths are subtly related, each responding to the same invisible forces. Gravity, solar wind, and rotation act upon both in ways that preserve a connection, a quiet choreography that feels almost intentional. You sense that even in divergence there is harmony, a gentle unity woven through movement, reminding you that separation does not imply disorder, but can reveal new patterns in the dance of matter. Your mind drifts to the impact of this subtle unpredictability on observation. Scientists on Earth track each fragment carefully, adjusting models, refining predictions, and learning from every new measurement. You feel the patient diligence of these observers, their calm curiosity mirroring your own as you follow the drift. Each new deviation is not alarming, but a data point, a gentle message about the complexity and resilience of natural processes. Observation becomes both a practice of science and a meditation on impermanence. You consider the scale of time and distance. The split is minuscule compared to the vast journey the comet has travelled. Yet over weeks and months, the fragments' paths diverge more noticeably. You sense the slow accumulation of small changes, the quiet amplification of subtle forces, and you feel the profound elegance of how the universe magnifies even the tiniest variations into meaningful outcomes. Patience, you realize, is intrinsic to understanding these processes, and observation itself becomes a form of gentle meditation. You imagine tracing your gaze along each fragment, watching them spin, tumble, and drift. You feel the poetry of motion, the rhythm of cause and effect, the quiet harmony of separate bodies moving through a shared space. Even as separation occurs, you sense continuity, the remnants of shared history preserved in composition, trajectory, and interaction. The split is a narrative, written in ice and stone, light and shadow, motion and stillness. You feel the intimacy of witnessing such transformation. The comet is no longer just a distant object. It is a participant in an unfolding story, revealing subtle truths about change, resilience, and the gentle unpredictability of natural processes. You sense that life, like the comet, unfolds through deviations and adjustments, that stability coexists with imperfection, and that beauty arises in the interplay of predictability and surprise. And as you continue to drift alongside these fragments, observing every subtle turn and rotation, you notice that the universe itself seems to mirror this gentle unpredictability. Even in immense space, change emerges slowly, quietly, and gracefully, guided by forces both observable and hidden. You feel a calm acceptance, a meditative understanding that surprises are part of the rhythm, part of the poetry, and part of the story that continues beyond your gaze. You find yourself leaning closer, not physically, but in thought, as though proximity could bridge the immense distances between Earth and 3S/AT/LAS. Observation has become more than tracking movement or recording data. Each flicker of light from the comet, every subtle change in rotation, every dust plume captured by telescopes feels personal, intimate. You feel a resonance with these silent travelers, a connection that is invisible yet unmistakable, as if the universe itself is acknowledging your attention. The screens on Earth hum quietly, showing graphs, images, and models. Each number, each plotted point represents the path of the comet across millions of kilometers. You imagine running your fingers along the data, tracing its journey, not just with your eyes, but with your mind. The light you see has traveled vast distances to reach you. Every photon is a tiny messenger, carrying information from the distant past. You sense that by observing carefully, you're touching the universe, however subtly. You notice the way scientists interpret the data. Their work is meticulous, patient, and full of reverence. Calculations of trajectory, probability, and potential outcomes are not merely abstract. They are intimate gestures of attention. Every adjustment to a model, every refinement of an orbit, every measurement of a fragment's drift feels like a conversation across time and space. You realize that in quiet observation, humans participate in the story of the comet, their curiosity bridging the chasm between knowledge and connection. Even the images themselves carry intimacy. You imagine the comet's surface, the rough textures of ice and stone, the reflective glimmers of crystalline formations, and the subtle jets of outgassing rendered in pixels on distant screens. Each detail invites contemplation, a meditation on structure, history, and motion. You feel that by attending to these images, by letting your mind linger on the comet's features, you are learning more than science. You're participating in a gentle communion with the cosmos. You sense the rhythm of observation unfolding like breathing. Telescopes sweep across the sky, recording light as it arrives. Data flows into computers, is processed and then interpreted. You imagine the rhythm of this workflow, a cadence of attention that mirrors your own breathing, slow and deliberate. Observation becomes a meditation, a quiet engagement with time itself, where each measurement carries weight not only in science but in awareness, mindfulness, and wonder. You begin to feel the subtle emotional resonance of this closeness. You have followed the comet through space, across distances measured in millions of kilometers, tracing its curves, rotations, and deviations. Each detail becomes a point of connection, a moment of shared experience with an object that has traveled farther than any human has ever ventured. You feel awe, reverence, and a gentle sense of kinship, as though both you and the comet are participants in the same ongoing journey. Time stretches and contracts as you watch. Moments of discovery feel elongated, full of significance, while hours pass without notice. You sense that true intimacy arises in patience, in allowing the story to unfold without haste. You are no longer an observer merely recording events. You are part of the unfolding narrative, feeling the gentle rhythm of the comet's path and the subtle interplay of forces that guide it. There is a soft satisfaction in this awareness, a feeling that your attention itself is a bridge between human curiosity and cosmic motion. The comet communicates through motion, light, and subtle change. You feel each drift and deviation as if it were a whisper, meant just for you, a language of physics translated into perception and feeling. Observation is transformed into touch, a gentle contact across the emptiness of space, and you sense that this intimacy is not limited to humans. The universe itself is active, responsive, and continuous, offering patterns, rhythms, and signals to those who care to notice. You notice that the connection deepens as you consider the comet's history. Every fragment, every fissure, every subtle rotation carries a memory, of formation, collisions, radiation, and outgassing. By observing carefully, you trace these stories, feeling them as though they were layered in your own consciousness. You realize that the universe, in its patient unfolding, offers not only knowledge but connection, a way to engage emotionally and intellectually with objects so distant that their light has traveled across space to reach you. Your mind softens as you dwell in this intimacy. The boundaries between observer and observed begin to blur. You feel empathy for the comet's journey, understanding its fragility and endurance. You imagine its spin, the sunlight catching icy edges, the slow erosion of surfaces, the tiny forces nudging it ever onward. Observation is not passive. It is a shared experience, a quiet dance between curiosity, patience, and awareness. where both you and the comet participate in a subtle exchange of attention. You sense the fragility of this connection, and yet its strength. The comet continues along its path, indifferent in some ways, yet through careful attention, you have touched it, not physically, but through perception, reflection, and understanding. Each calculation, each graph, each image brings you closer, and in this closeness, you feel the wonder of scale, the poetry of distance, and the quiet reassurance that observing attentively is a form of participation in the universe. You reflect on how observation transforms into intimacy over time. The longer you watch, the more familiar the comet becomes. Its quirks, rotations, and subtleties become known, and you feel a sense of companionship with this distant traveler. Even as it drifts through billions of kilometers of space, you are aligned with its rhythm, sharing a quiet, meditative awareness that connects your consciousness to its motion. Observation has become a bridge, a subtle form of empathy, and a gentle, sustained dialogue across time and space. And as you linger in this moment, tracing light, movement, and subtle change, you realize that science and wonder are inseparable here. Knowledge is not cold or distant. It is intimate, a form of care expressed through attention and patience. You feel the gentle joy of being a participant in this quiet story, where measurement and reflection become a shared meditation with the cosmos. You watch as the fragments of 3I/ATLAS drift apart, each moving with its own rotation, its own subtle rhythm. The separation is gradual, almost imperceptible at first, yet over hours and days it becomes more apparent. You feel the motion as a gentle unfolding, a slow expansion of a once unified body into multiple dancers, each tracing a path through the void. There is no haste, no rush, only the quiet elegance of motion following the rules of physics, each fragment responding to gravity, inertia, and faint pressures from sunlight. The pieces spin and tumble in space, revealing surfaces that were once hidden. Crystalline ice catches the sun in brief flashes, casting glimmers across rocky protrusions. Shadows stretch and shift in slow time, painting fleeting patterns that are never the same twice. You feel the rhythm of the fragments' rotations as if it were a heartbeat, subtle and consistent, yet ever-changing. Even in their separation, there is a unity, a silent choreography that evokes awe without sound. You imagine following each fragment closely, tracing their unique motions. One tilts slightly as it spins, reflecting light in a different pattern, while another tumbles erratically, hinting at an uneven distribution of mass. These variations are tiny, yet they reveal the story of the comet's past, impacts, outgassing events, and internal stresses that now express themselves in independent motion. You sense that even divergence carries memory, that the fragments are not merely separate, but threads of a shared history stretching across space. The distances between them increase gradually, yet you notice a subtle connection maintained by the forces that shape their paths. Gravity, although minuscule between small fragments, still nudges, while radiation pressure and residual outgassing exert tiny but persistent influence. You feel a sense of harmony in this interplay, a reminder that even in apparent chaos, underlying rules maintain coherence, and even independence can coexist with connection. You reflect on the scale of these motions. While the fragments appear distant in your mind's eye, each is still part of a continuum, a small group traveling together through vast emptiness. Over time, their trajectories may diverge more noticeably, yet the initial dance remains linked, a choreography set in motion long before you began watching. You sense the quiet poetry in this, the way movement preserves history and expresses time even as it hints at new possibilities. The tumble of each fragment reveals tiny, previously unseen textures. Ice layers glimmer faintly, while rocky edges cast intricate shadows. You imagine floating alongside, your attention tracing every curve, ridge, and fissure. The fragment's motion feels like a conversation without words, each rotation tumble and drift, expressing balance, adjustment, and adaptation to forces both internal and external. Observation becomes a form of empathy, a gentle understanding of movement and the quiet shaping of destiny. You notice how sunlight and space particles interact differently with each fragment. One reflects light brightly while another seems duller, hinting at differences in compositional surface history. Dust and small ice grains drift off the surfaces, carried by subtle forces, and you sense the ongoing evolution of these tiny travelers. Even in stillness there is motion. Even in separation there is a story unfolding slowly and gracefully across the void. The rhythm of the fragment's movement invites reflection. You think of the comet's long journey, the billions of kilometers traveled, and now this delicate splitting. Each fragment continues its own path, guided by the same universal laws, yet expressing individuality. You feel a quiet lesson here. In life, as in the universe, unity and independence coexist, each part moving according to its own rules, yet bound to the whole by invisible threads. You follow the tumbling motion in slow detail, imagining the spin rates, the subtle changes in orientation, and the faint traces of gas streaming into space. Each fragment is a small world of its own, yet their shared origin creates a harmony you can perceive in your mind's eye. You sense that observation itself becomes a dance, aligning your awareness with the motions, rotations, and drifts unfolding across millions of kilometers. You begin to notice patterns emerging from apparent randomness. Even the most erratic spins follow subtle constraints imposed by mass distribution and the gentle tug of external forces. You feel the quiet satisfaction of recognizing order in chaos, the gentle reminder that complexity can carry beauty without requiring intervention. The fragment's slow ballet, invisible to most, becomes a meditation on motion, pattern, and connection. You consider the long-term implications of the split. Over months or years, each fragment may drift farther apart, yet the initial dance leaves traces in the trajectory and orientation of every piece. You sense the continuity of history, the persistence of origin, and the gentle unfolding of possibility. Each moment of observation, each attention to detail reveals the harmony of imperfection, the subtle balance between independence and relation, and the ongoing story of transformation in the universe. The silence of space amplifies the poetry of their motion. There are no sounds, no crashes, no harsh impacts, only movement, rotation, and reflection, observed in quiet attention. You feel your own breathing align with the rhythm, a soft pulse matching the slow choreography of tumbling ice and rock. In this gentle resonance, observation becomes a shared experience, a quiet alignment of mind and universe, of consciousness and matter, unfolding without haste. And as you continue to drift alongside these fragments, tracing their rotations, spins, and slow separations, you feel the profound elegance of imperfection. Even in division, there is continuity. Even in divergence, there is connection. You sense that every motion, every flicker of light, every subtle rotation is part of a dance that stretches across space and time, quietly reminding you of the balance between independence and unity. You imagine the quiet hum of control rooms on Earth, where scientists and engineers watch, calculate, and anticipate. Large screens display simulations, paths, probabilities, and models, each one representing an unseen possibility, a variation of what may come. You sense the concentration in the room, the patient attention to detail, the silent rhythm of thinking and planning. Every calculation is a gesture of care, every adjustment a subtle act of responsibility. The unknown stretches ahead, and yet the teams work to illuminate it piece by piece. They cannot control what the comet will do, but they can anticipate, prepare, and respond. You sense that preparation itself becomes a form of meditation, a quiet discipline practiced over hours, days, and months. Each model is a way of engaging with uncertainty, transforming doubt into understanding, and potential chaos into a sequence of considered possibilities. You imagine the simulations unfolding across the screens, countless trajectories, each slightly different, each representing a scenario where fragments drift slightly faster, rotate differently, or encounter the faintest nudge from solar wind. You feel the attention given to each variable, the patience required to account for every nuance, no matter how small. Even the minutest forces are considered, every outcome mapped in meticulous detail. You sense the dedication it requires, the quiet reverence for the forces of the universe and the lives that may be affected. Maps of probability stretch across the walls. You imagine points of possible impact, areas of safe passage, and corridors of uncertainty, all illuminated with gentle colors. There is no panic here, only careful thought, a soft insistence on readiness. You feel the rhythm of preparation, a slow pulse that mirrors the quiet pulse of the comet itself, a meditation on vigilance, foresight, and respect for the vastness of space and time. You notice how each team member contributes. Some focus on trajectory, others on rotation, outgassing, or fragment separation. Even the smallest contribution matters. A single overlooked variable could shift understanding subtly. You feel a sense of harmony in this collaboration, a silent choreography where every mind, every calculation, every gesture is aligned in anticipation of the unknown. The attention is both scientific and tender, a care for both knowledge and consequence. The unknown carries a weight, yet it also invites curiosity. You sense the quiet thrill of exploring uncertainty, a space where imagination, intellect, and observation meet. Each simulation becomes a map of possibility, a gentle exploration of what may happen and what may be prevented. You feel that the act of preparation is itself a meditation, a calm engagement with forces larger than oneself, where diligence and patience create a bridge between the unpredictable universe and the human capacity to understand. You imagine the teams running countless iterations, adjusting variables by fractions, testing scenarios that may never occur, all in the service of readiness. You sense the slow accumulation of insight, a layered understanding that grows with each calculation. There is beauty in this process, a quiet poetry in the way human attention meets cosmic uncertainty. Each simulation is not just prediction, but a way of listening to the universe, interpreting its whispers, and responding with care. You notice the quiet tension that accompanies preparation. There is awareness that no matter how thorough the models, absolute certainty is impossible. The comet may surprise, fragments may drift in unforeseen ways, and outcomes may deviate from expectation. You feel a soft humility in this recognition, a gentle acknowledgement of limits, and the elegance of working within them. The unknown is both challenge and teacher, inviting patience and mindful attention. Even in the anticipation of potential impact, there is calm. The teams plan, prepare, and consider, but they do not rush or panic. Each action is deliberate, each step measured. You feel the rhythm of this preparation as meditative, almost like following a slow, careful dance, one that balances knowledge, caution, and curiosity. The universe is vast, indifferent, yet the human response is careful, deliberate, and full of care. You sense that preparation is not just about control, but about connection. By observing, modeling, and planning, the teams participate in the story of the comet. Their attention becomes a conduit between human consciousness and the unfolding journey of 3I/ATLAS. You feel that even distant observation and careful calculation are forms of engagement, subtle ways of being present in the universe and attentive to its rhythm. You imagine the quiet exchanges between scientists, a question, a suggestion, a small refinement in the model. Each contribution echoes softly, rippling through the simulation, nudging understanding forward. You sense the patient harmony of collaboration, the silent acknowledgement that knowledge is built collectively, that preparation is both technical and meditative, and that every gentle adjustment matters in the unfolding narrative. You reflect on the balance between caution and curiosity. Observation, simulation, and planning are all acts of care, for knowledge, for outcomes, and for the universe itself. You feel the quiet satisfaction of being aligned with something greater, of participating, however indirectly, in the dance between chance and preparation. Even in uncertainty, there is elegance, a soft poetry of attention and respect. And as the simulations run, each scenario unfolding slowly on glowing screens, you sense the quiet tension and soft anticipation lingering in the air. The unknown is vast, yet patience and attention create clarity, guiding decisions with care and precision. You feel that preparation in its most mindful form is a meditation on responsibility, presence, and engagement with forces beyond human control. You sit quietly, letting your attention drift toward the numbers that define understanding. Calculations, probabilities, and statistics flow like invisible rivers, carrying knowledge of the comet's path across space. Each number is a small piece of insight, a whisper from the cosmos rendered in human comprehension. You feel their presence, subtle but significant, as if each digit holds a fragment of truth waiting to be understood. You consider the path of 3i/ATLAS. Every decimal in a trajectory calculation carries weight. Every fraction of rotation matters. A tiny error, a neglected variable, could subtly alter predictions, guiding a fragment along a slightly different course. You sense the responsibility embedded in numbers, the care required to interpret them, and the quiet power they wield over understanding. They are not cold abstractions, but carriers of insight, bridges between mind and universe. Probability unfolds slowly before you. You imagine a delicate web of possibilities, each one branching gently from the other. Some paths are more likely, others less so, yet each is part of the larger story. You feel the calm patience required to consider every outcome, to trace trajectories in mind and in calculation. Probability is not a measure of fear or doubt, but a reflection of attentiveness, a gentle acknowledgement that the universe contains many subtle possibilities at every turn. You notice how each measurement is layered upon another. Telescopes capture light, instruments record rotation, models calculate drift. Each layer adds precision, narrowing uncertainty while revealing the depth of complexity. You sense the elegance of this cumulative process, the slow accumulation of clarity through observation, computation, and reflection. Numbers become a language, quiet and deliberate, conveying understanding without urgency. You imagine tracing each calculation as though it were a path through the stars. Each step is deliberate, precise, and meaningful. You feel the intimacy of following the logic, connecting with the care and intention of those who work tirelessly to understand the comet. You sense that numbers are a way of listening, a method of attending deeply to motion, mass, and distance. They are the quiet pulse of predictive science, measured in decimals, probabilities, and outcomes. You reflect on the human element behind the numbers. Scientists work patiently, checking, rechecking, adjusting models as new data arrives. You feel the quiet dedication, the soft focus required to maintain clarity over long hours and repeated calculations. Every correction is an act of care, every refinement a gentle gesture toward understanding, a meditation on the patience needed to hold the universe's subtle truths. You notice the way numbers translate observation into insight. Distance, speed, mass, probability. Each metric reveals something unique, yet none stands alone. You imagine weaving them together, like threads in a tapestry, each contributing to the whole, each carrying a story. In this weaving, you feel the gentle artistry of science, the quiet elegance of understanding, derived from careful attention and thoughtful interpretation. The weight of numbers is both practical and profound. Each decimal point carries consequence, yet each also carries the potential for wonder. You sense the responsibility inherent in knowing, in predicting, in preparing. Numbers, though abstract, are imbued with meaning, translating the immense silent movements of space into a language humans can perceive, interpret, and act upon. You feel their gravity, not as burden, but as a gentle guide, teaching patience, attentiveness, and respect. You imagine tracing a fragment's path through probabilities, following tiny variations that ripple outward over time. Each adjustment in calculation is like a soft nudge, a small recognition of the subtle forces at play. You sense the interconnectedness of observation, mathematics, and prediction, and feel the quiet intimacy that arises from understanding how tiny numbers can reflect the vast choreography of the cosmos. You notice that even small probabilities carry significance. A 1 in 1,000 chance is not meaningless. It is an invitation to awareness, a reason to prepare, a reflection of the universe's capacity for subtlety and surprise. You feel the humility in working with these values, the gentle recognition that uncertainty is a companion in the quest for understanding, and that attention to detail can transform potential confusion into quiet insight. You sense the rhythm of numbers unfolding in your mind. One calculation leads to another, each building on prior knowledge, each creating a framework of understanding that grows steadily over time. You feel the meditative quality of this process, the way focused attention, patience, and reflection combine to create clarity. In this rhythm, numbers are more than tools. They are companions, offering guidance, insight, and reassurance. You imagine the comet's path rendered entirely in these subtle values: distance, speed, angle, rotation, mass distribution, each carefully measured, calculated, and integrated. You feel the quiet poetry in this translation, the elegance of mathematics conveying motion, probability, and consequence. You sense that each number is a small connection, a link between mind and universe, between observation and understanding, between curiosity and comprehension. And as you contemplate the quiet weight of numbers, the gentle guidance they provide, you begin to understand that observation, calculation, and attentiveness are all part of a single meditative process. Numbers are not separate from wonder. They are its expression, a gentle way to engage with the vast, subtle rhythms of the cosmos. You lean into the subtle presence of the comet, imagining the tiniest details: microscopic dust grains, fleeting ice crystals, and thin streams of gas drifting away into space. They are almost invisible, yet they carry stories older than any living memory. You feel the gentle hum of these particles, each one moving along its path, a quiet echo of forces both seen and unseen. Their motions are delicate, almost imperceptible, yet collectively they shape the story of 3I/ATLAS, whispering secrets about its origin, composition, and journey across the cosmos. The particles are small, but they hold immense significance. Each grain of dust is a fragment of history, a piece of material forged in the early days of the solar system or beyond. You imagine touching them with your mind, feeling their texture, their weight, their silent dance through emptiness. Even in their fragility there is resilience. Even in their minuteness there is influence. The universe often speaks most quietly through its smallest components. You notice how sunlight interacts with these particles. Some scatter light, creating faint glimmers like tiny stars surrounding the comet. Others absorb energy and release it slowly, adding to the gentle warmth of surrounding space. You sense the subtle poetry in this interaction, a cosmic conversation carried in reflection, absorption, and motion. Each particle contributes to a quiet symphony, invisible yet profoundly present, reminding you that even the smallest elements participate in the grand dance of the cosmos. Gas escaping from the comet moves in thin, almost imperceptible streams. You follow it in your imagination, tracing its path as it drifts outward. Each molecule carries information about temperature, composition, and pressure, whispers of the comet's internal structure. You feel that by attending to these delicate flows, you are listening closely to the comet's own voice, a language written in movement, interaction, and the invisible pulse of matter. The dust and gas drift along the path of the comet, influenced by gravity, rotation, and solar wind. Their motions are slow and graceful, almost meditative, a reminder that even the smallest forces exert their influence over time. You sense the quiet patience of these particles, moving steadily in a choreography shaped by the universe's subtle rules. There is a gentle lesson here, that motion, no matter how slight, contributes to the unfolding of story and history across unimaginable distances. You reflect on the balance between fragility and power. Each particle is delicate, easily displaced, yet collectively, these grains of dust and streams of gas interact with light, radiation, and magnetic fields, subtly altering the comet's trajectory over time. You feel the interconnectedness of the tiny and the immense, the way the smallest components influence the larger system. Fragility and strength coexist, each particle a testament to the delicate architecture of nature. You imagine the particles forming tails of light, stretching for millions of kilometers, their motion slow but deliberate. In these tails, history is preserved. Collisions from eons past, sublimation from sunlight, and the slow drift of time itself. You sense that observing these small particles is not passive. It is an act of intimacy, a meditation on the whispers of the cosmos, a way of tracing history encoded in ice, dust, and gas. You notice that even seemingly random motion has pattern. Subtle variations in density, orientation, and composition influence how the particles drift. Some move faster, some slower, some in tiny arcs shaped by solar wind and rotation. You feel the elegance in this, the quiet dance of cause and effect, and you understand that even apparent chaos carries hidden rhythm and order. Observation becomes a gentle alignment of your awareness with this subtle complexity. You reflect on the scale of influence. A single particle may seem insignificant, yet when multiplied across millions, its collective effect becomes substantial. You sense how small elements accumulate into measurable impact, nudging the comet's motion, scattering light and interacting with space around it. There is a quiet reminder here. In the universe, the smallest things are never irrelevant, and attentiveness to them is a way of understanding the broader tapestry of existence. The particles drift in silence, yet you imagine them as a symphony of tiny voices. Each one carries memory, motion, and interaction, a note in a composition spanning space and time. You feel yourself becoming attuned to this symphony, listening with imagination and care, perceiving the quiet power that emerges from countless minute elements moving in delicate concert. The universe communicates softly yet profoundly through these drifting messengers. You sense a tactile intimacy as you imagine floating among the particles. Their paths, spins, and drifts create a rhythm that is almost tangible, a quiet cadence that mirrors your own breathing. You feel a connection to both the small and the vast, recognizing the gentle interdependence of parts and whole. Fragility, motion, memory, and influence coexist here, and you sense a meditative harmony in the way the universe arranges itself. You think of how these particles will continue their journey long after the comet passes near Earth. Some will drift into the solar wind, others into deep space. Each carries a history, a story, a memory, and yet participates in the ongoing rhythm of cosmic movement. You feel that observation is a form of companionship with these travelers, a way to witness the quiet unfolding of processes that are both delicate and enduring. You imagine the patterns formed by millions of particles, the subtle arcs, clusters, and dispersions that shift and rotate in response to invisible forces. You feel the universe's gentle insistence that even the tiniest elements are active participants in creation, motion, and history. There is an elegance here that invites slow contemplation, a calm understanding that attention and care aide to reveal beauty even in the smallest and most ephemeral things. And as you continue to watch, drifting with imagination among the particles, you sense that the comet is more than an object. It is a symphony of history, motion, and delicate interaction, offering lessons about fragility, influence, and the quiet power of even the smallest voices. You imagine drifting beside the comet, letting your awareness extend beyond its surface to the invisible forces flowing around it. Solar wind, magnetic fields, and the faint push of photons from the sun shape its journey in ways you cannot touch but can sense with careful attention. These currents are intangible, yet persistent, like a river of energy flowing through space. You sense the comet responding, tilting, spinning, and drifting along paths subtly guided by forces that are everywhere yet nowhere tangible. The solar wind brushes past the comet with gentle persistence. Streams of charged particles ejected from the sun move at incredible speeds, colliding with the comet's outer layers, nudging dust, ice, and gas in slow, steady motion. You imagine feeling this breeze in your mind, a soft, invisible current caressing the comet and carrying whispers of the sun's energy across millions of kilometers. Even the smallest influence is significant over time, a reminder that persistence matters as much as strength. Magnetic fields flow through space, invisible yet present, shaping motion without touch. You visualize the lines of force stretching between planets, the sun, and the distant reaches of the solar system. They are subtle guides, gentle but inexorable, influencing charged particles and indirectly the path of the comet. You feel a sense of calm awe, realizing that the universe operates with a quiet, unseen order, moving objects through space with patient insistence. You notice how the comet's own weak magnetic field interacts with these external flows. Charged particles are deflected, tiny forces accumulate, and rotations adjust imperceptibly. Each subtle interaction is a negotiation between the object and its environment, a conversation in which the comet participates without awareness. You feel the poetry in this exchange, imperceptible influence, patient guidance, and a dialogue of forces invisible to most but apparent to the careful observer. Even light exerts influence. Photons streaming from the sun impart momentum, nudging fragments ever so slightly. This effect, called radiation pressure, is imperceptible in the moment, yet over weeks, months, and years, it can alter orientation, rotation, and trajectory. You imagine each photon as a tiny whisper, a gentle instruction that collectively guides the comet's path. You sense the beauty in these subtle dynamics, the quiet power of the seemingly insignificant, the poetry of persistence. You reflect on how invisible currents create patterns that are predictable yet mysterious. You can model them, anticipate their effects, and measure outcomes, but they remain intangible. You feel a deep connection to the elegance of this unseen world, where forces shape motion without touch, and understanding requires patience, attention, and respect. The universe reveals itself gradually, like a slow, deliberate dance performed in silence. The comet spins, and dust and gas trail behind it, interacting with these currents. You imagine these particles caught in streams of energy, forming arcs and subtle shapes influenced by unseen hands. You feel a sense of continuity, a recognition that nothing in motion is ever truly separate from its environment. Every fragment, every particle, every rotation participates in a conversation conducted by forces invisible yet real, subtle yet persistent. You sense the slow passage of time in this interaction. The currents are constant, yet their effects accumulate gradually. You feel the quiet patience inherent in cosmic motion, where even massive objects respond to invisible nudges over eons. There is no rush, no abrupt change, only persistent, careful influence that guides trajectories, shapes rotations, and orchestrates motion with a gentle hand. Observation becomes a meditation, a quiet alignment of mind with the rhythm of forces that stretch across space. You notice that even the smallest variations in current can produce noticeable differences in the comet's path over time. A slight shift in solar wind, a subtle fluctuation in magnetic strength, or a minute change in photon pressure can alter rotation, tilt, and fragment dispersion. You sense the delicate balance of forces and the patience required to observe, calculate, and understand their effects. You feel the universe speaking through gentle nudges, teaching attentiveness and humility. You reflect on the beauty of invisible influence. These currents operate suddenly, without fanfare, yet they are as real as gravity, as potent as motion itself. You sense that the universe communicates subtly, and that understanding comes not from domination but from careful listening. You feel a meditative calm in following these currents, tracing the way they guide the comet, shaping the dance of fragments, and orchestrating motions imperceptible yet profound. You imagine floating alongside a fragment, feeling the push of the solar wind, sensing the tug of magnetic fields, and perceiving the subtle drift of radiation pressure. You sense the fragment's tiny adjustments, rotations, and shifts as a dialogue between object and environment. You feel a quiet reverence for this invisible guidance, understanding that the cosmos moves with order and grace, shaping motion gently across unimaginable distances. Even as you watch, patterns emerge from subtle interactions. You see arcs of dust shaped by currents, rotations adjusted by invisible forces, and trajectories bending imperceptibly under gentle influence. The universe demonstrates that influence does not require forceful action. It can be persistent, patient, and understated. You feel a sense of wonder, realizing that invisibility does not equate to insignificance, and subtlety can be as powerful as the most visible events. You reflect on the connection between observation and understanding. By attending carefully to these currents, by tracing their subtle guidance, you participate in a quiet act of comprehension. You feel aligned with the rhythm of the universe, your mind moving in concert with forces invisible yet tangible in their effects. You sense that understanding is not just knowledge but a form of presence, a meditation on patience, attention, and reverence for processes beyond immediate perception. And as you continue to drift alongside the comet, tracing its rotations, the trailing particles, and the invisible currents that guide them, you sense the persistent elegance of space. Forces unseen are as real as those felt, shaping motion, direction, and evolution with quiet precision. You feel your awareness merging with the rhythm of these currents, a gentle, meditative alignment with the silent pulse of the cosmos. You watch the comet drifting through space and feel the gentle tug of questions forming in your mind. Not loud or urgent, they are soft murmurs, barely there at first, yet persistent. Why has 3I/ATLAS come to this place at this time? Why does it follow this particular path, spinning and tumbling along a trajectory shaped over millions of years? These are questions with no immediate answers, yet they invite you to pause, to breathe, and to observe more deeply. You sense that uncertainty itself has its own rhythm, a slow pulse that draws your attention inward. You do not need solutions. You only need to notice the questions and let them settle alongside the quiet motion of the comet. They are companions rather than challenges, soft guides that encourage patience and presence. You feel the gentle balance of curiosity and calm as the universe offers its mysteries without demand. The trajectory of 3I/ATLAS seems both precise and unpredictable. Calculations map its path across space, yet minor variations in rotation, fragment dispersion, and solar influence introduce uncertainty. You realize that even when you understand the rules, the universe retains subtle surprises. The questions arising from this uncertainty are not shortcomings of knowledge. They are invitations to wonder, to linger in the presence of something greater than immediate comprehension. You reflect on the beauty of observation without immediate conclusion. By allowing questions to exist without forcing answers, you create a space for reflection, imagination, and mindfulness. The soft murmurs of why and how carry no tension here, only gentle curiosity. You feel a connection between yourself, the comet, and the cosmos, united by a shared acceptance of mystery and the quiet acknowledgement of limits. Some questions feel practical. Could the fragments collide with other objects? Will dust and gas disperse in unexpected ways? How might subtle gravitational forces influence their rotation and drift? You imagine the scientists on Earth grappling with these same questions, running simulations, modeling possibilities, and exploring consequences. Yet even they, with all their expertise, accept that some uncertainty will always remain. The unknown is a companion as much as a challenge, a reminder that preparation and observation can coexist with mystery. Other questions feel more profound. Why does this object, so ancient and solitary, traverse the void in such a pattern? What can it teach about the formation of the solar system, the evolution of interstellar objects, or the delicate balance of matter in motion? You sense that these inquiries have no immediate answers, yet they expand your awareness, deepen your appreciation, and cultivate a meditative patience. Wonder, you realize, is a form of presence, a way to align your attention with the subtle pulse of the cosmos. You notice that questions have a rhythm, like the slow spin of the fragments. Some arise quickly, others linger for hours, subtly shifting shape and meaning over time. You let them float through your awareness without clinging. You feel a gentle alignment with the universe's pace, learning that curiosity does not demand resolution. You practice the art of holding space for questions, feeling their weight and texture without urgency or expectation. You imagine yourself observing a fragment as it spins, dust and ice drifting from its surface, guided by solar wind and invisible currents. Each subtle movement invites another question. How did this fragment form? What collisions shaped its surface? How does it respond to radiation and gravity across millions of kilometers? You sense the intimacy in asking, the quiet presence required to truly notice, and the patience inherent in waiting for understanding to emerge slowly over time. The questions also have emotional resonance. You wonder about the lives touched by this comet's journey, the scientists modeling it, the people watching from Earth, and your own mind tracing its silent path. Each inquiry deepens your connection, inviting empathy, attentiveness, and reverence. You sense that reflection and wonder are intertwined, and that sometimes the most profound understanding emerges not from answers, but from dwelling gently in curiosity. You realize that uncertainty itself has its own kind of elegance. It is not a void or a deficiency. It is an invitation to linger, to slow your pace, to notice patterns without rushing to define them. You feel the quiet pulse of space, the gentle dance of fragments, the subtle guidance of invisible forces, and the soft murmur of questions. Each element carries a lesson about patience, observation, and the beauty of not knowing. Even as you sit with these silent questions, you sense their subtle influence on your mind. They guide your attention, shape your imagination, and cultivate a reflective state of being. You notice how curiosity can be soothing, how gentle inquiry aligns your thoughts with the slow rhythms of motion and change. Questions are not interruptions, they are companions on this quiet journey, each one inviting awareness and presence. You reflect on the role of questions in science itself. Every observation, every calculation, every simulation begins with inquiry, the gentle whisper of what if, or how might this happen? You feel the connection between human curiosity and the universe's inherent mystery. The unknown is not frightening here. It is a quiet teacher, guiding attention, shaping understanding, and offering moments of stillness between the beats of discovery. And as you continue to watch, lingering in gentle contemplation, you notice that the questions themselves seem to ripple outward, touching fragments, particles, and currents alike. They are part of a vast web of inquiry and response, subtle but meaningful, connecting mind, object, and cosmos in a shared meditation. You sense that sometimes the act of noticing, of attending, is as significant as the answers that may eventually come. You imagine millions of eyes lifting toward the night sky, drawn by the presence of 3I/A, TLAS, a silent traveller gliding across familiar constellations. Some gaze through telescopes, instruments pointed precisely, collecting light and recording data. Others simply look with naked eyes, marvelling at the faint, glowing tail stretching across the darkness. You feel the quiet connection formed in that shared attention, a collective mindfulness that bridges oceans, continents, and time zones. Each observer participates in a subtle ritual of noticing. In backyards, on rooftops, in observatories, people pause their daily routines to align their awareness with a distant visitor. You sense the soft rhythm of curiosity, each breath and blink attuned to the slow, deliberate motion of the comet. Watching becomes an intimate act, a meditative acknowledgement of something larger than oneself. You notice the diversity of observers. Children press faces against glass, imagining journeys beyond Earth. Scientists make notes and calculate paths. Dreamers lift their gaze and feel a gentle thrill. You sense the unity in these varied experiences, the way the comet becomes a shared focal point, quietly synchronizing attention across cultures and minds. The night sky itself becomes a bridge, uniting millions in observation and quiet wonder. You imagine the threads of human curiosity weaving together. Each question asked, each photograph taken, each calculation recorded becomes part of a larger tapestry. The comet's path intersects with human thought, drawing out questions, reflections, and moments of stillness. You feel the gentle hum of collective attentiveness, as though the act of watching alone transforms space into a subtle conversation between observer and observed. Even distant observers participate in this quiet communion. You sense the children in remote villages, the astronomers in research facilities, and the casual stargazers in cities, all aligning their awareness with the comet. Their attention is like a soft chorus, reverent yet joyful, acknowledging the comet's presence without demanding it to be anything other than itself. You feel that in this alignment, humanity touches something enduring and ancient. You reflect on the intimacy of shared observation. Though separated by geography and circumstance, each gaze contributes to a network of awareness. You sense that these countless individual acts of noticing combined carry a subtle energy, a resonance of curiosity and mindfulness that mirrors the slow, elegant movement of the comet itself. Observation becomes a gentle act of connection, linking humans across Earth to one another and to the cosmos. You notice the quiet excitement in the patterns of observation. Instruments hum softly in distant labs, processing data, while minds interpret images, rotations, and fragment paths. You feel the care in each calculation, the attentiveness in each adjustment, and the patience in waiting for confirmation. Even as the comet moves silently, these collective efforts create a living dialogue between human consciousness and interstellar matter. You sense the emotional resonance of this shared experience. Wonder and awe ripple gently through communities, quietly altering perception. You imagine a teacher pointing out the comet to a classroom of children, a family leaning together to watch its glow, an amateur astronomer whispering to a friend about a faint dust trail. Each interaction, small and subtle, carries the soft energy of curiosity and attentive presence, creating an unspoken bond between humanity and the vastness of space. You reflect on the power of attention. By watching, measuring, and noticing, people participate in an act of mindfulness on a cosmic scale. Each glance at the sky, each recorded measurement, becomes an expression of engagement with something vast, silent, and beautiful. You feel that observation is itself a form of reverence, an acknowledgement that the universe's quiet rhythms are worthy of attention and care. You imagine the comet continuing its journey while Earth turns beneath it. Cities drift into night, lights can dim, and observers linger in quiet anticipation. You feel the soft resonance of curiosity across time zones, each human heartbeat aligned, however briefly, with the motion of distant ice, dust, and rock. This shared gaze is a gentle meditation, a reminder that awareness itself can create a bridge between minds, planets, and stars. Even as instruments collect precise data, you sense the poetry in human observation. Each measurement captures a fragment of reality, while each gaze captures wonder. Numbers and attention intertwine, creating a rich dialogue between intellect and imagination. You feel the gentle interdependence of calculation and reflection, precision and awe, science and mindfulness. Both are forms of presence, ways to engage with the quiet, immense rhythms of the universe. You notice that attention transforms perception. Those watching feel the comet's presence, its subtle rotation, its drifting fragments, and even its faint tail of particles. You sense that their curiosity awakens empathy, awareness, and a meditative calm. You feel that in noticing, in aligning your attention with something distant, you participate in the same gentle rhythm that guides the comet's motion, slow, deliberate, and serene. You reflect on how collective attention magnifies meaning. The comet itself moves without awareness, yet human observation imbues it with presence, curiosity, and shared significance. You feel a deep resonance in this interplay. The universe acts, humans observe, and together they create a subtle narrative of connection, wonder, and attentive presence. Observation is both witness and participation, a bridge between awareness and the vastness of space. You imagine the night stretching quietly, stars glimmering, people observing, instruments recording. The comet drifts onward, fragments spinning, particles scattering, currents invisible but persistent. You sense the shared heartbeat of observation, a rhythm that flows through humanity as a gentle reminder that curiosity and attentiveness unite minds across Earth. Each gaze, each calculation, each quiet reflection becomes a meditation in presence and wonder. You feel the quiet tension of anticipation as the comet drifts closer. Across millions of kilometers, each rotation, each fragment, each particle is mapped, measured, and understood in careful increments. Time seems to stretch, a slow unfolding where every second carries weight. You sense the universe in motion, deliberate yet serene, a rhythm that invites both observation and reflection. This is not chaos, it is precise, measured, and inevitable. A silent ballet moving toward a moment of convergence. Predictions and simulations cascade across observatories and research centers. Scientists follow trajectories, calculate probabilities, and prepare contingency plans. Yet their movements are calm, methodical, almost ritualistic. You feel their attention, not hurried but precise, attuned to the subtle cues that space provides. Instruments hum softly, screens glow with calculated trajectories, and distant telescopes focus on tiny fragments of ice and rock spinning silently through the void. You sense the weight of responsibility held in quiet concentration. You notice the comet's approach in your mind's eye. Dust glimmers in the sunlight, fragments drift apart in slow arcs, and faint tails stretch outward like delicate streams of smoke. You imagine these motions not as threats but as revelations, subtle demonstrations of the universe's intricate choreography. You feel a rhythm in the approach, a cadence that is both measured and gentle, as though the cosmos itself is breathing, leading everything toward this precise moment. The instruments measure every aspect: velocity, rotation, fragment dispersion, and trajectory. Probabilities are calculated for countless scenarios, yet there is an elegance in the certainty of physics, in the predictability of celestial mechanics. You sense that preparation is a form of mindfulness, a quiet attentiveness to the natural laws guiding 3I/ATLAS. Observation becomes an act of presence, a meditation on the slow, deliberate unfolding of events beyond your immediate control. You reflect on the anticipation that threads through humanity. Millions of observers across Earth follow the comet, their curiosity focused, their attention aligned with the silent motion above. Children and adults alike lift their eyes, watching, imagining, wondering. You sense that in this shared anticipation, human awareness converges into a soft collective rhythm, subtle and profound, reflecting curiosity, respect, and an acknowledgement of the universe's vastness. You imagine the instruments capturing light, recording subtle shifts in trajectory, and transmitting this information across the globe. Each piece of data carries a fragment of understanding, a gentle clarification of what is to come. You feel that this quiet process mirrors your own observation, a meditation on attentiveness and patience. Science becomes a bridge between knowledge and wonder, a way to participate in the cosmos without altering its natural course. The comet's fragments drift, rotating and tumbling. Some pieces reflect sunlight more brightly, others carry shadows and hidden textures. You feel the subtle drama of these motions, not violent, but inevitable. Every rotation, every drift, every glimmer is part of the narrative unfolding in real time. You sense that beauty resides not only in calm observation, but in the knowledge that even immense forces follow predictable, graceful paths. You notice the way anticipation shapes your perception. The approach feels slower than it truly is, as if time itself stretches to accommodate careful attention. You sense each calculation, each probability, each observation as a heartbeat, a soft echo of the universe's own rhythm. Even though the moment of impact approaches, there is serenity here, a quiet understanding that the cosmos moves with grace, and your role is to witness and reflect. You consider the instruments and methods that guide preparation. Telescopes track movement, computers simulate possible interactions, and algorithms predict outcomes. You feel the subtle poetry in this combination of human curiosity and cosmic law. Science becomes a meditation in motion, each calculation a breath, each observation a pause, each adjustment a gentle acknowledgement of the intricate web of cause and effect shaping the comet's approach. You reflect on the human experience of anticipation. There is tension, yes, but it is balanced with patience, careful attention, and respect for forces larger than yourself. You sense that calm focus allows observation to become intimate, that preparation transforms potential anxiety into deliberate understanding. Even in the face of the unknown, you feel a quiet assurance, a sense of alignment with the universe's rhythm and inevitability. The comet's proximity allows you to sense details you could not before. Tiny jets of gas erupt from its surface, dust drifts along slow arcs, and fragments interact with invisible currents, following paths calculated and observed with precision. You feel the quiet persistence of these natural processes, the elegance of forces operating without haste or interruption. Each motion is a lesson in patience, a gentle demonstration of how order emerges from complexity, and how time carries events toward resolution with calm inevitability. You notice the delicate balance between probability and certainty. Scientists model countless scenarios, yet the fundamental laws of physics remain steadfast. You feel the harmony in this balance, the gentle reassurance that understanding and preparation coexist with unpredictability. There is a beauty in attending to both the known and the uncertain, recognizing that observation, calculation, and reflection can transform the unknown into a shared experience of mindful presence. You imagine the moment drawing closer, each second filled with attention, each observation a quiet act of alignment with the comet's trajectory. You sense a shared heartbeat across Earth, the pulse of those observing, measuring, and reflecting. In this convergence, there is not fear, but an awe-filled attentiveness, a meditation on motion, probability, and the subtle beauty of cosmic inevitability. Even as the comet approaches, you feel the serenity of acceptance. The universe follows its rules. Your role is to witness, to notice, and to reflect. Every rotation, every fragment, every subtle adjustment is a part of the unfolding story. You sense that in this quiet, measured observation, you are intimately connected with both the motion of the comet and the minds of those observing it across Earth. You notice the final seconds before the predicted encounter. Calculations converge, probabilities align, and instruments hum softly, You feel the rhythm of preparation, the gentle pulse of anticipation, and the meditative focus of all who watch and wonder. There is no hurry, no panic, only a calm attentiveness to motion, time, and consequence. You feel aligned with the slow, graceful unfolding of events, aware of the beauty in careful observation. You lift your eyes to the night sky, still bright with stars, and feel the quiet echo of 3I/TLAS lingering in your mind. The comet has moved beyond view, yet its presence is not gone. Its fragments, faint dust, and streams of gas continue to drift through space, a silent trace of what passed, like footprints in cosmic sand. You sense the calm persistence of motion, the gentle unfolding of events that do not require attention to exist, yet reward it with understanding and wonder. You reflect on the journey you have shared with this distant visitor. From the moment it first entered the solar system, you traced its motion, imagined its composition, and felt its subtle influence through currents, fragments, and invisible forces. Each chapter of observation, each pause of curiosity, has been a meditation in attentiveness. You realize that watching was not passive, it was intimate, a quiet conversation between mind and universe. The night sky seems more alive now. You notice how faint dust scatters sunlight, creating subtle glimmers like memory traces of the comet's journey. You imagine these particles drifting for centuries, slowly dispersing, yet retaining the story of where they came from. You feel that every observation, every reflection, every attentive moment you have given was a way of participating in that story, a silent acknowledgement of history, motion, and interconnection. You sense the patient rhythm of space. Even in the absence of the comet, motion continues. Fragments spin and drift, dust disperses slowly, and the solar wind carries gentle influence across unimaginable distances. You feel aligned with these rhythms, a quiet presence within the vast, persistent flow of cosmic processes. There is comfort in this continuity, a reassurance that the universe moves with patience and grace even when observation ends. You reflect on humanity's place in this shared experience. Across Earth, eyes have lifted, minds have traced motion, and hearts have felt curiosity and awe. You imagine millions of observers releasing tension as the comet passes, carrying with them a quiet sense of connection and wonder. You feel part of a larger meditation, a collective breath synchronized with the motions of distant ice, rock, and dust. There is a subtle unity in shared observation, an acknowledgement that attention itself carries meaning. You notice the lingering effects of attention. Though the comet has moved on, your mind traces its trajectory, imagines its fragments, and senses the invisible currents that once guided it. You feel that observing is not just watching, it is absorbing, remembering, and integrating. Every calculation, every glance, every quiet reflection adds to your understanding, forming a gentle map of knowledge that extends beyond the visible moment into memory and imagination. The faint trails of dust left behind catch your eye. They shimmer in the dim starlight, delicate threads connecting past and present. You sense the comet's history encoded in these small particles, the journey of matter across eons, the quiet persistence of forces shaping motion without fanfare. You feel that understanding arises not from force or speed, but from gentle observation, patience, and reverence for the slow unfolding of cosmic events. You reflect on the intimacy you have felt with the comet. You traced its rotations, noted its splits, felt its particles drift under invisible currents, and observed its approach through collective human attention. This intimacy was quiet, deliberate, and meditative. It was not a relationship of control, but one of mindful presence, a recognition of the beauty in alignment, curiosity, and gentle understanding. You sense that this attentiveness is itself a form of connection, a bridge to the cosmos. You notice the lingering influence of unanswered questions. Some inquiries remain soft whispers. Why did it arrive now? Why this trajectory? How will its fragments disperse over millennia? Yet these questions are not burdens, they are invitations to dwell in reflection. You feel a sense of calm acceptance, understanding that not knowing is as valuable as knowledge. The quiet space left by uncertainty is a meditation in itself, a gentle pause that mirrors the slow drift of fragments across space. You sense the continuity of motion beyond the comet. Solar wind, magnetic fields, and radiation continue to shape the paths of particles, currents, and bit of dust. You feel a quiet reverence for these persistent forces, moving without haste, guiding matter with subtle insistence. You sense that life, observation, and attention are part of this rhythm, moments within a slow, deliberate flow that extends beyond human perception, yet touches human consciousness through curiosity, reflection, and wonder. You imagine the comet's story continuing in ways you will never fully witness. Fragments drift, collide, or disperse into invisible reaches of space. Dust mingles with particles from other objects, continuing an endless interaction of matter and energy. You feel that observing, even briefly, is participation. Witnessing is a meditation, a gentle form of companionship with processes that stretch across time and space. You sense the quiet power of presence and awareness, a rhythm that matches the universe's own patient cadence. You reflect on the lessons of attentive observation. Fragility and persistence coexist, small elements influence vast systems, and invisible currents shape motion with quiet precision. You feel that curiosity, mindfulness, and patience are as much a part of the universe as rotation, gravity, and solar wind. Observation becomes a bridge between knowledge and wonder, a slow meditative alignment with the forces that shape matter, history, and imagination. You notice how your own awareness has changed. You feel more attuned to subtle processes, both internal and external. The quiet hum of the cosmos, the gentle interplay of motion, and the delicate balance of fragility and influence resonate with your own thoughts, heartbeats, and breath. You sense that reflection and attentiveness cultivate not only understanding but also calm presence and connection with both self and universe. You imagine drifting beneath the stars, the night sky deep and unending. The comet has passed, yet its memory remains, faint trails of dust, subtle arcs of light, and the quiet persistence of fragments. You sense the culmination of observation, reflection, and shared attention as a gentle meditation, an unfolding realization of continuity, interconnectedness, and the patient beauty of the cosmos. You feel sleep approaching, slow and inevitable, like the gentle drift of a fragment carried by solar wind. Thoughts of particles, currents, human attention, and cosmic rhythms mingle in your mind, softening the edges of wakefulness. You sense that the universe continues its motion, unaffected by observation yet enriched by it, a constant serene presence that guides and nurtures curiosity, reflection, and calm.